I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to share happened 2 hours after I buried my youngest son. A phone call shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. By the time the sun set that day, I discovered that my eldest son was a murderer. My name is Mariana Hartwell. I'm 52 years old, CEO of Hartwell Development, one of South Florida's premier real estate companies. For 30 years, I built this empire from nothing. Started with a single property in Coral Gables, turned it into a portfolio worth $200 million. My late husband Richard always said I had a gift for seeing potential where others saw problems. But on that Saturday afternoon in December, as I sat alone in my study wearing the black dress from my son's funeral, I couldn't see anything but darkness. The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk where Evan and I used to sketch building designs together. He'd been 23 years old, brilliant, full of a future that would never come. The doctors called it sudden organ failure, rare, unexplainable. A healthy young man, athlete, architecture student at the University of Miami, gone in less than a week. My husband Richard had died 3 years earlier. Massive heart attack at 52, same age I am now. The irony isn't lost on me. Now Evan was gone too. This house, this beautiful 14,000 square foot estate in Coral Gables, felt like a mausoleum, filled with ghosts and memories I couldn't bear to touch. "Mom?" Bradley's voice drifted from the living room. My eldest son, 28 years old, vice president of Hartwell Development, my right hand in the company. He'd been so attentive since Evan got sick, staying close, making sure I ate, handling all the funeral arrangements when I couldn't function. "You need anything? Water? Something to eat?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. The mourners had left an hour ago, their hollow condolences still echoing in my head. He's in a better place now. Time heals all wounds. At least he's not suffering anymore. Empty words that meant nothing. My baby was dead, and no platitude could change that. I stared at the family photo on my desk, taken 5 years ago at Richard's 50th birthday. Richard with his arm around my shoulders, that easy smile that made me fall in love with him 30 years ago. Bradley on his right, tall and confident, already looking like the businessman he'd become. And Evan on my left, younger, softer, his architect's eye always seeing the world differently. Both my boys, my entire world. Now half that world was gone. That's when my phone buzzed on the desk. The name on the screen made me sit up straighter, pushing through the fog of grief. Evan's architecture professor at the University of Miami. She'd been at the funeral that morning, standing in the back of the chapel, unable to speak. When it came time to pay respects at the casket, she'd placed a single white rose on the polished wood, tears streaming down her face. She'd taught Evan for 3 years, mentored him, called him the most talented student she'd seen in 2 decades of teaching. I answered quickly. "Professor Ross?" "Mrs. Hartwell." Her voice was wrong, trembling, breathless. Nothing like the composed, authoritative woman who'd spoken at the university's award ceremony when Evan won the Architectural Design Prize last spring. I found something in Evan's belongings. You need to see this." My chest tightened. "What kind of something?" "I can't explain over the phone." The words came fast, panicked. Please come to my office at the university right now. The architecture building, 3rd floor, suite 304. I glanced toward the living room where Bradley was moving around, tidying up dishes from the reception. "Professor Ross, can't this wait until—" "No." The word came out sharp, desperate. "Mrs. Hartwell, please, don't tell anyone you're coming. Not even—" She paused. I heard her breathing heavily. "Not even your other son. This is dangerous." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart suddenly hammering. Dangerous? What could possibly be dangerous about Evan's belongings? Textbooks, sketches, architecture models? But something in Professor Ross's voice made every instinct I'd honed in 30 years of business scream that this wasn't nothing. This was something important, something terrifying. I stood up, smoothing my black dress. My hands were shaking. I grabbed my purse from the chair and walked toward the living room. Bradley appeared in the doorway, blocking my path. "Going somewhere, Mom?" For a second, I saw something flash across his face, something that made me pause. But then it was gone, replaced by concern. Gentle, caring. The son who'd held me at the hospital when the doctors told us Evan was gone. "Just need to drive," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Clear my head." He stepped closer, studying my face. "Want company? I can drive you wherever you need to go." "No, I need some time alone, to think." "Where are you going?" The question was casual, but something about it felt wrong. Too sharp, too focused. "Just driving. Maybe to the beach, maybe nowhere. I don't know yet." Bradley reached out and squeezed my shoulder. "Take your time, Mom. I'll be here when you get back. Want me to make dinner for later?" "That would be nice. Thank you, sweetheart." He pulled me into a hug. I hugged him back, feeling the solid warmth of my eldest son, my remaining son, all I had left. But as I stepped back, I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not worry, something else, something calculating. Then he smiled and it was gone. "Drive safe." 20 minutes later, I was pulling into the visitor parking lot at the University of Miami. The campus was nearly deserted on a Saturday evening. Final exams were next week, but most students were either studying in the library or had gone home early for winter break. Palm trees lined the walkways, casting long shadows in the orange-pink glow of sunset. The architecture building loomed ahead, its modern glass and steel facade reflecting the sky like a mirror. My heels clicked on the concrete as I walked toward the entrance. The building was mostly dark, just a few lights on scattered floors. I took the stairs to the 3rd floor, my breath coming faster, not from exertion, from fear, from the memory of Professor Ross's voice on the phone. "Dangerous. Don't tell anyone, not even your other son." The 3rd floor hallway was dim, lit only by emergency lights. Professor Ross's office was at the end, Suite 304. As I approached, I saw light spilling from a door that stood slightly ajar. I heard voices inside. I froze. "I told you to stay out of this." A male voice, low, threatening. "Give it to me now." "Please, this isn't—" Professor Ross, frightened, pleading. "I said give it to me." I moved closer, pulse hammering in my ears. Through the gap in the door, I saw Professor Ross backed against her filing cabinet, hands raised. Her face was white, eyes wide with terror. Papers were scattered across her desk, books knocked to the floor. And standing before her, gripping what looked like a worn leather journal, was Bradley. My eldest son, the man who said he'd be at home making dinner. Instead, he was here, at the university, threatening the woman who'd called me for help. I didn't think. I pushed the door open. The hinges creaked loudly in the tense silence. Bradley spun around, and for one frozen second, our eyes met. His expression shifted rapidly, from fury to shock to something carefully controlled, the mask of concern sliding back into place. "Mom?" His voice was smooth now, gentle. "What are you doing here?" For a moment, I couldn't force words out. My brain couldn't reconcile what I was seeing with what I knew. This was Bradley, my eldest son, the boy who used to bring me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day, the teenager who worked 3 jobs to help pay for college, the young man who held my hand at Richard's funeral and promised he'd take care of me and Evan. But right now, standing in Professor Ross's office with that journal in his hand and that calculated look in his eyes, he looked like a stranger. "I could ask you the same thing," I said finally, voice steadier than I felt. "You told me you'd be at home." Bradley glanced at the journal in his hand, then at Professor Ross, then back to me. His face softened into something apologetic. Understanding. The perfect son. "I couldn't just sit around, Mom. I needed to do something. Be useful." He gestured around the office. "I came to collect Evan's things before the university clears everything out. I didn't want his work just tossed into storage somewhere. You know how much his projects meant to him." The explanation sounded reasonable, caring, exactly what a loving brother would do. But Professor Ross's face told a different story. She was pressed against the filing cabinet, her fingers trembling. Her eyes kept darting between me and Bradley, desperate, frightened. When she looked at me, I saw a silent plea. "That's thoughtful of you," I said carefully, watching Bradley's face. "Professor Ross, is that why you called me? To help collect Evan's belongings?" She opened her mouth, closed it, nodded too quickly. Yes, I wanted to make sure his family got everything before we have to clear the office space." She was lying. I could see it in every line of her body, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, the way her hands shook, the way she kept glancing at the journal Bradley held like it was a bomb that might explode. Bradley moved toward me, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Let's go home, Mom. You shouldn't be driving around tonight. You're exhausted. You need to rest." He was steering me toward the door, gently but firmly, the way you'd guide a confused elderly person, the way you'd move someone you were managing. "I can come back Monday for the rest," he said to Professor Ross, his voice warm and grateful. "Thank you so much for your help." She nodded again. "Of course. Monday is fine." As Bradley guided me through the door, I felt something brush against my coat. I glanced back. Professor Ross had moved closer, her hand extended. Our eyes met for one brief second, and in that moment, I saw pure terror. Her lips moved, shaping a single word: run. Outside the building, the warm Florida evening felt surreal. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. Students walked by laughing, absorbed in their phones. The world was normal, but nothing was normal. Bradley walked me to my car, his hand still on my shoulder, protective, concerned. "Mom, I'm worried about you. You don't look good. Let me drive you home." "I'm fine. I can drive." "Are you sure? Because, Bradley." I turned to face him, forcing myself to look into his eyes. The same brown eyes as mine, the same eyes that used to look up at me when he was 5 years old, begging for another bedtime story. "I'm fine. I'll see you at home." He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll follow you, just to make sure you get there safely." "That's not necessary." "I insist, Mom, please, for my peace of mind." His sleek black sedan was parked 3 spaces away. He walked to it, got in, started the engine. Waiting. I got into my Mercedes, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. As I turned the key, I reached into my coat pocket. My fingers touched paper. I pulled it out. A torn piece of notepad. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I carefully folded the paper and tucked it into my purse. In my rearview mirror, I could see Bradley's sedan, headlights on, waiting. I pulled out of the parking lot. Bradley followed. The drive back to Coral Gables felt endless. My thoughts spiraled, colliding with images I couldn't process. Bradley in that office. Professor Ross's terrified face. That journal. The note in my pocket. Journal. His room. Under mattress. What journal? Why would it be hidden? Why would Professor Ross be so afraid that she'd risk slipping me that note right in front of Bradley? Dangerous. Don't tell anyone, not even your other son. I turned onto Anastasia Avenue. My house appeared ahead, its Spanish colonial facade glowing in the dusk. Bradley's car was still behind me. He pulled into his usual spot in the circular driveway. I parked beside him. He got out, came to my door, opened it. "See? Home safe." "Thank you for worrying," I said, accepting his hand as I stepped out. "But I'm fine, really." "Why don't I make us some tea? We can sit, talk, remember Evan together." Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to get away from him, but I couldn't let him know I suspected anything. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. "That sounds nice," I lied. "Give me a few minutes to change. This dress is uncomfortable." Inside, I went straight to my bedroom, changed into comfortable clothes, slacks and a soft sweater. Heard Bradley moving around in the kitchen downstairs, the clink of mugs, the whistle of the kettle. My bedroom overlooked the backyard. Next to it was Evan's room, the room he'd had since he was 8 years old, the room I hadn't been able to enter since he died, the room where, according to Professor Ross's note, there was a journal hidden under the mattress. I stood in the hallway, staring at Evan's closed door. Behind me, I heard Bradley's footsteps on the stairs. "Mom, tea's ready." "I'll be right there," I called. "Just need to use the bathroom." His footsteps paused, then continued down the stairs. I counted to 30. Then I opened Evan's door and slipped inside. The room looked exactly as he'd left it 3 weeks ago, before he went to the hospital complaining of stomach pain. His unmade bed with the navy blue comforter bunched at the foot. Architecture textbooks piled on his desk. The half-finished scale model of a sustainable housing project he'd been perfecting for his senior thesis. The walls covered with sketches and blueprints. Photos of buildings he admired. A poster of Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. The faint smell of his cologne still lingered in the air. Clive Christian. The expensive bottle I'd given him for his 23rd birthday 3 months ago. The scent made my chest tighten so hard I thought I might break. But I couldn't break. Not yet. I moved to the bed and lifted the mattress. There, pressed against the box spring, lay a worn leather journal. Brown, about 6 by 8 inches. The leather was soft from handling, the edges worn. Evan's journal, the one he'd carried everywhere since high school. I pulled it out with trembling hands and opened to the first page. The date was 3 months ago, September 15th. The handwriting was Evan's. Neat, precise, the handwriting of an architect. Week 1, Bradley gave me these premium vitamins today. Said they'd help with stress during finals. He's been really supportive lately, checking in on me, asking about my classes. It's nice. We haven't been this close since we were kids. Maybe we're finally building the relationship we should have had all along. I turned the page, week 3, feeling nauseous. Tired all the time. Went to the health center. They said it's probably stress and overwork. Final projects are due in 2 months. Bradley keeps telling me the vitamins will help. He brings them to me every morning now. Makes sure I take them. Says he wants to make sure I'm taking care of myself. Something cold crept into my stomach. Week 5. Something's wrong. Really wrong. The nausea is getting worse. I can barely eat. I've lost 12 pounds. Went back to the doctor. They ran tests. Everything came back normal. But I don't feel normal. I feel like something is eating me from the inside out. I checked my symptoms online. Nothing fits. But I noticed something. Every time I take those vitamins Bradley gives me, I feel worse a few hours later. Coincidence? Probably. But it bothers me. Today, when Bradley wasn't home, I looked at the vitamin bottle. There's no brand name, no label. Just a plain amber bottle with chemical codes stamped on the plastic. TX447B, compound 7G. I took a photo. I don't know why. Something just feels off. A photograph was taped to the page. A close-up of a small amber bottle, completely blank, except for those stamped codes. I stared at it until the image burned into my brain. Week 7. I'm scared. Really scared. I looked up those chemical codes. I couldn't find anything online, which makes sense if they're pharmaceutical compounds. But why would Bradley give me unlabeled pills? I confronted him yesterday, asked him where he got the vitamins. He said from a friend who works in supplements, that they're a premium brand, very exclusive. He got defensive when I kept asking questions, said I was being paranoid. That stress was making me suspicious of the people trying to help me. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am paranoid. He's my brother. He wouldn't hurt me. He's been nothing but supportive since Dad died. Why would he suddenly want to harm me? But I can't shake this feeling. Something is wrong. Week 9, I stopped taking the vitamins 3 days ago. Told Bradley I didn't need them anymore. He got upset. Really upset. Said I was being ungrateful, that he was just trying to help and I was throwing it in his face. I felt better for 2 days. The nausea lessened. I had more energy. But then Bradley came over with a smoothie, said he felt bad about arguing. The smoothie was good. Banana and strawberry, my favorite. 6 hours later, I was in the emergency room. The doctor said it looked like food poisoning, but it felt like more than that. My liver enzymes were elevated. My kidney function was off. They kept me overnight. Bradley stayed with me the whole time, held my hand, told me everything would be okay. He looked so worried, so caring. I felt guilty for suspecting him. Week 11, back in the hospital. This time it's worse. My liver is failing. The doctors don't understand why. They're running every test, asking about drugs, alcohol, toxins. I told them I don't drink, don't do drugs. They seem baffled. I know why, though. I know. But if I tell them, Bradley goes to prison. Mom will lose both sons. She's already lost Dad. How can I do that to her? And what if I'm wrong? What if this is all coincidence and paranoia? What if I accuse my brother of trying to kill me and I'm just sick? Really sick from some rare disease they haven't diagnosed yet? I can't destroy my family based on suspicion. I can't. The next entry was dated 3 days before Evan died. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. My liver is failing. Kidneys failing. The doctors say I have days, maybe a week. They still don't know why. But I know. I've known for weeks. I found Bradley's laptop yesterday when I came home to get some things. He left it open in his room. I saw emails. Email to someone named Gordon Miller, our company's CFO. They were talking about me, about the problem being handled, about money, about offshore accounts, about splitting $2.3 million once the obstacle is removed. I'm the obstacle. I'm the one being removed. I screenshotted everything. Sent the photos to Professor Ross. Told her if anything happens to me, she needs to show them to Mom. She needs to make sure Mom knows. I'm so tired. So scared. But I can't tell Mom. She's already lost Dad. If I tell her what Bradley is doing, it will destroy her. Maybe it's better if she thinks this is just an illness. A tragic accident. Better than knowing her eldest son is a murderer. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this truth. I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault. This is all Bradley. Only Bradley. The journal ended there. The rest of the pages were blank. I sat on Evan's bed, the journal heavy in my hands like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The room spun around me. My baby. My sweet, brilliant baby. He'd known. He'd known Bradley was killing him. And he'd kept quiet to protect me. The pain that hit me was physical, sharp and devastating, like a knife to the chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only sit there holding my dead son's journal while the truth crushed me. Bradley had murdered Evan. My eldest son had poisoned my youngest son. Slowly, methodically, over 3 months, while I praised their closeness, while I thought they were finally building a real relationship, while Bradley held Evan's hand in the hospital and cried beside me at the funeral. He'd killed his own brother. For money. For the company. For $2.3 million. Footsteps in the hallway. Mom? Bradley's voice getting closer. Are you okay? Your tea is getting cold. He was coming toward Evan's room. I looked at the door, at the journal in my hands, at the window with the small balcony outside. Evan's balcony overlooked the backyard. Next to it ran the fire escape, metal stairs zigzagging down the side of the house. I'd yelled at Evan 100 times for using it as a shortcut when he was running late. Now it might save my life. I stood up, slipped the journal inside my sweater, moved to the balcony door. Mom, are you in Evan's room? The doorknob turned. I unlocked the balcony door as quietly as possible. It creaked. The hinges squeaked. The warm evening air rushed in, carrying the scent of jasmine from the garden below. I stepped onto the balcony just as Bradley opened the bedroom door behind me. Mom! I didn't look back. I swung my leg over the railing, my hands gripping the wet metal. It had rained earlier, and the fire escape was slick. My shoes slipped slightly, and for one terrifying second, I thought I'd fall. Then my foot found the first step. Behind me, Bradley moved through the room. "Mom, what are you doing? Come back inside." I climbed down as fast as I dared. 1 foot, then another. 20 feet. 15. 10. My heart hammered against my ribs. The journal pressed hard against my skin, solid and incriminating. Above me, Bradley appeared on the balcony. "Mom, stop! Please!" When my feet hit the grass, I ran. The side gate was unlocked. Evan always left it that way. I pushed through and emerged onto Anastasia Avenue. My car sat in the driveway, but I couldn't risk going back. Bradley would catch me. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd called thousands of times. Leonard Pierce, my executive assistant, my right hand for 15 years. The man who'd helped me build Hartwell Development from nothing. The man I trusted more than anyone. He answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Hartwell, is everything all right?" "Leonard." My voice came out raspy, desperate. "I need help. I'm near the house, corner of Anastasia and Granada. Can you pick me up? Right now?" Leonard didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. "I'm 20 minutes away. Stay hidden. I'm coming." I ended the call and pushed deeper into the hedge at the corner. From here I could see my house. Lights flickered on in Evan's room, then the hallway, then the living room. Bradley was searching. The next 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. I watched as Bradley came outside, looked up and down the street. His phone glowed in his hand. He was calling someone. Calling me, probably. My phone was on silent in my pocket. He paced the driveway, looked frustrated, worried. The concerned son whose mother was having a breakdown. Finally, headlights approached. Leonard's silver Honda pulled up to the corner. I ran to it, yanked open the door, and dove inside. "Drive," I said. Leonard pulled away smoothly, calmly. At 55 years old, he'd guided me through countless business crises, difficult negotiations, hostile takeovers, market crashes. But this was different. This was worse than anything we'd faced. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Anywhere but here." I pressed my hand against my sweater, feeling the journal beneath it. "I'll explain everything. But first, just drive." He nodded and headed toward downtown Miami. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. My breathing slowly returned to normal. My hands stopped shaking quite so badly. Leonard didn't push, didn't demand explanations. Just drove until we reached his building, a converted loft development downtown, one of the first projects Hartwell Development had completed 10 years ago. Leonard kept a small studio unit here, 1204, for nights when he worked late at the office. He parked in the underground garage and led me upstairs. The studio was small but comfortable. Modern furniture, large windows overlooking the city lights. A safe place. A place Bradley didn't know about. "Sit," Leonard said gently, guiding me to the couch. "Tell me what happened." So I did. Everything. Professor Ross's call, finding Bradley in her office, her terrified face, the note, the journal. Every word Evan had written. When I pulled out the journal and handed it to Leonard, his hands shook as he opened it. He read in silence, his face going pale, then flushed, then pale again. I watched emotions play across his features. Shock, horror, rage, grief. When he finished, he closed the journal carefully and set it on the coffee table like it was made of glass. "My God," he whispered. "Bradley did this. He killed Evan." "Yes." "And Gordon Miller was his accomplice." I nodded. Gordon Miller, our CFO for 8 years, a man I'd trusted, a man I'd promoted, a man who'd sat beside me at Evan's funeral and told me how sorry he was for my loss. Leonard stood up and started pacing. "We need to go to the police, right now, tonight." "And tell them what?" I asked. "That we have Evan's journal? A journal I found hidden in his room after breaking into my own house to escape my other son?" "It's evidence. It's suspicion," I interrupted. "It's a dying young man who suspected his brother but never proved anything. A defense attorney will tear it apart. They'll say Evan was paranoid from the stress of his illness, that he was irrational, that this proves nothing." Leonard stopped pacing. "Then what do? We get more evidence." I picked up the journal, holding it like the precious thing it was. My son's last words, his last attempt to protect me. We prove intent. We find the emails Evan mentioned. We get recordings. We build a case so strong that no defense attorney can touch it. That's dangerous. If Bradley finds out, he already knows something is wrong. He saw me run. He knows I was in Evan's room. I met Leonard's eyes. He killed my baby. He murdered his own brother for money. And according to that journal, he's working with Gordon. They're planning something. They're not going to stop just because Evan is gone. You think you're in danger? It wasn't a question. I nodded anyway. I think I'm the next problem they need to solve. Leonard sat back down, his face set with determination. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. We gather evidence. We expose them. And we make damn sure they pay for what they did. The TV on the wall flickered to life. Leonard must have left it on earlier. The evening news. I barely paid attention until the anchor's voice cut through my thoughts. Breaking news from the University of Miami. Professor Catherine Ross was found dead this evening after an apparent fall from a fifth-floor window at the architecture building. Preliminary reports suggest a possible suicide, though police are investigating. Ross, 46, was a beloved professor who taught at the university for... The journal slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a soft thud. The screen showed police tape, flashing lights, the architecture building, emergency vehicles, reporters with microphones. No, I whispered. No. Mrs. Hartwell, they killed her. My voice cracked. She tried to help me, and they killed her. She's dead because of me, because I couldn't, because I didn't. This is not your fault. Leonard grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. She died because she did the right thing. She died trying to expose a murderer. We cannot let that be for nothing. I picked up the journal with shaking hands, stared at Evan's neat handwriting, thought about Professor Ross placing that white rose on the casket this morning, thought about the terror in her eyes when Bradley demanded the journal, thought about her slipping that note into my pocket, risking everything to warn me. Run. She'd saved my life, and they'd killed her for it. I lifted my head, and the grief I'd been drowning in hardened into something else, something cold and sharp and unyielding. We make sure everyone knows what they did, I said. We get evidence. We expose them. And we make sure the whole world sees who Bradley Hartwell really is. Leonard nodded. What's the plan? I stood up, setting the journal on the coffee table. First, we stay hidden. Bradley thinks I'm having a breakdown. Let him think that. Second, we get into his office at Hartwell Development. His computer, his files. If those emails exist, they'll be there. That's breaking and entering. It's my company, my building. I'm not breaking in. I have a master key. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Besides, I'm the CEO. Who's going to stop me? 2 days passed before we could make our move. 2 days of hiding in Leonard's studio apartment while Bradley searched for me. 2 days of watching my phone light up with his calls, his texts, his voicemails that grew increasingly frantic. Mom, where are you? I'm worried sick. Please call me. We can talk about whatever's bothering you. I've called the police. They're looking for you. Mom, please just let me know you're safe. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Every time I saw his name on my screen, I saw Evan's handwriting in that journal. He's my brother. He wouldn't hurt me. Leonard brought me clothes from a department store. Comfortable things I could move in. Black pants, dark sweaters, running shoes. He brought food I barely touched. Coffee I drank by the gallon. And he brought his laptop where we planned. The security system at One Brickell Plaza is comprehensive, Leonard said, pulling up blueprints on his screen. We sat at his small dining table, papers scattered everywhere. Cameras in every hallway, motion sensors on the executive floor. But there's a window, a very small window. I leaned forward, studying the floor plan of the building I'd designed 15 years ago. Floor 28, the executive level. My office at the north end. Bradley's at the south, Gordon Miller's office between them. The security guard changes shifts at 2 a.m., Leonard continued. For exactly 5 minutes, there's a gap. The night guard does a final sweep of the lower floors before the late-night guard takes over. During those 5 minutes, the executive floor is unwatched. 5 minutes isn't enough time. It would be if we looped the camera feed. Leonard pulled up something on his laptop, a dark web marketplace I didn't want to know how he'd found. I ordered a signal jammer. It creates a 3-minute loop in the security footage. Just enough time for you to get in, find what we need, and get out. I stared at the small device in the photo. It looked like a USB drive. That's illegal. So is murder. Leonard's voice was flat. Mrs. Hartwell, we're past the point of playing by the rules. Bradley and Gordon killed Evan. They killed Professor Ross. If we don't stop them, they'll kill you too. He was right. I knew he was right. But 30 years of building my reputation on integrity, on doing things the right way, made every instinct rebel against what we were planning. What if his computer is locked? I asked. Leonard smiled grimly. I bought remote access software. If you can get the computer turned on, I can bypass most password protections from my laptop. I'll be in the car, monitoring everything. You find the evidence, I download it, you get out. What about the physical security, cameras in the parking garage? We use the south entrance, the service entrance contractors use. It's not monitored at night because it's supposed to be locked, but I have the override code. He pulled out a piece of paper with a 6-digit number. Memorize this. Don't write it down. I studied the numbers until they burned into my brain. 472913. The service elevator goes straight to 28, Leonard continued. No stops, no cameras inside. Once you're on the floor, you have 3 minutes before the loop ends. Get to Bradley's office, turn on his computer, let me in remotely, and get out. What if he's there? At 2 a.m. on a Monday? He won't be. He's been at your house every night, waiting for you to come home. Leonard's expression darkened. I've been watching. He parks in your driveway, sits there for hours. He's looking for you, Mrs. Hartwell. He knows something is wrong. A chill ran through me. My son, my eldest son, sitting in my driveway, hunting for me like prey. Then we do it tonight, I said, before he figures out where I am. At 1:45 a.m., Leonard parked his Honda 2 blocks from One Brickell Plaza. The downtown Miami streets were mostly empty. A few homeless people huddled in doorways. A police car cruised past, and we both held our breath, but it continued without stopping. I wore all black. Gloves, a dark baseball cap pulled low over my face. I looked like a criminal. Felt like one too. But what choice did I have? Go to the police with a journal full of suspicions? Wait for Bradley to find me? No, I needed proof. Hard evidence that would stand up in court. Evidence that would make it impossible for any jury to doubt what Bradley had done. Remember, Leonard said, handing me a small earpiece. I'm with you the whole time. I can hear everything. If something goes wrong, if anyone shows up, I'll warn you immediately. I fitted the earpiece into my ear. Test. Loud and clear. His voice came through crisp and close, like he was standing right beside me. Mrs. Hartwell, are you sure about this? Once you go in there, there's no turning back. I'm sure. I wasn't. But I thought about Evan's journal. About Professor Ross falling from that window. About the emails Bradley and Gordon had exchanged, planning my son's murder like it was just another business transaction. Let's do this. I walked the 2 blocks to One Brickell Plaza. The building rose 40 stories into the night sky, its glass facade reflecting the scattered lights of downtown Miami. I'd been so proud when we'd completed this building. State-of-the-art offices, sustainable design, a crown jewel of Hartwell Development's portfolio. Now it felt like a trap I was walking into. The south entrance was recessed behind a landscaped courtyard. During the day, contractors used it to move supplies and equipment. At night, it was supposed to be locked and alarmed, but Leonard was right. When I punched in the code, 472913, the lock clicked open. I'm in, I whispered. Good, Leonard's voice in my ear. Service elevator is 20 feet ahead on your right. The jammer activates in 90 seconds. The hallway was dim, lit only by emergency lighting. My footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. I found the service elevator and pressed the call button. The doors opened immediately. No one else was using it at this hour. I stepped inside. Pressed 28. The doors closed. Jammer activating now, Leonard said. You have 3 minutes starting Yazish. Now, the elevator rose smoothly. 26, 27, 28. The doors opened onto the executive floor. I'd walked this hallway 1,000 times. Usually in daylight, in heels and business suits, greeting my employees. Now it felt foreign, hostile. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The carpet muffled my footsteps. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Suite 2800, Bradley's office. I pulled out my master key, the one that opened every door in the building, and slid it into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Bradley's office smelled like expensive leather and his cologne. Tom Ford Noir, the same cologne Richard used to wear. For a moment the scent paralyzed me with memory. My husband, my son, both wearing the same scent, both gone now in different ways. I moved to the desk and powered on his computer. The screen blinked to life, casting a blue glow across the dark office. A password prompt appeared. I'm at the password screen, I whispered. Try his birthday, Leonard said. I typed 05141196. Bradley's birthday, May 14th, 1996. Password incorrect. Try Richard's name. Richard H. Richard Hartwell. Password incorrect. Try the company name. Hartwell Dev. Password incorrect. Mrs. Hartwell, you've got 2 minutes. Try. And then I knew. That bitter, sick knowledge that made my stomach turn. I typed 0315202. Evan's birthday, March 15th, 2002. The screen unlocked. I'm in, I sighed, my voice hollow. He used Evan's birthday as his password. The irony was devastating. Bradley had used his brother's birthday, the brother he'd murdered, as a password to protect the evidence of that murder. The brother whose life he'd stolen, the date he'd immortalized in his computer security. Mrs. Hartwell? Leonard's voice was gentle. You okay? No, but keep going. Look for a folder labeled private or personal, something he'd used to hide sensitive information. I scanned the desktop. Business folders, client files, project proposals, and there, tucked in the corner, a folder labeled private. Locked with another layer of security. Found it. It's encrypted. Hold the phone up to the screen. I can crack it remotely. I pulled out my phone, held it up. The camera focused on the screen. Leonard's software went to work. 10 seconds. 15. 20. Chidichti. Got it, Leonard said. Opening now. The folder blinked, then opened. Inside were dozens of emails. I clicked the first thread, and my blood went cold. From Bradley Hartwell to Gordon Miller. Date, September 10th, 2024. Subject, no subject. The problem needs to be handled quickly. The board is pushing for Evan to join the leadership team next year. They want to create a position for him, Chief Innovation Officer or some nonsense. If that happens, he'll have voting power. He'll challenge everything I do. I can't let that happen. From Gordon Miller to Bradley Hartwell. Date, September 11th, 2024. I understand your concern. I have a contact who can help with this type of problem. It's not cheap, but it's untraceable. The substance is slow acting, looks like natural organ failure. No one will suspect anything. Cost, $15,000. Are you sure you want to proceed? From Bradley Hartwell. Date, September 11th, 2024. Do it. Once he's gone, the company is mine. Mom won't last long without both her sons and her husband. When she steps down, I'll be named CEO. The board won't have a choice. I'm the only Hartwell left. We split the offshore funds like we discussed. $2.3 million from the Phoenix project. I've already created the shell company in the Bahamas. Vertex Holdings, LLC. Once we liquidate, we're both set for life. From Gordon Miller Date, September 12th, 2024. Your gambling debts will be cleared. I'll retire comfortably to the Cayman Islands. Deal done. I'll have the substance by Friday. How will you administer it? From Bradley Hartwell. Date, September 12th, 2024. I'll tell him they're vitamins. Stress supplements. He trusts me. He'll take them. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. Leonard's voice came through the earpiece, tight with rage. Take photos. Every email. We need all of it. I took pictures with my phone. Every single email. Every damning word. There were more. Dozens more. Detailed discussions about dosage, about timing, about how to make sure Evan didn't suspect, about moving the money offshore, about the life insurance policy Bradley had taken out on Evan 6 months ago, listing himself as beneficiary. $1 million. Bradley had bet $1 million that his brother would die. 1 minute, Leonard warned. You need to get out. I closed the folder, shut down the computer, wiped the keyboard with my sleeve. Backed toward the door, still taking photos of the office layout. Evidence. All of it evidence. I locked the door behind me and ran for the service elevator. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst. The elevator doors opened. I jumped inside, pressed the ground floor button. 30 seconds, Leonard said. The loop is ending. Get out the south entrance. I'm bringing the car around. The elevator descended. 25, 20, 15, 10, ground floor. The doors opened and I ran through the hallway, burst through the south entrance into the warm Miami night. Leonard's Honda was already there, door open. I dove inside. He pulled away slowly, carefully, not drawing attention. Just another car on a quiet downtown street at 2 a.m. We didn't speak until we were 5 blocks away. Then Leonard pulled into an empty parking garage and stopped. We both sat there, breathing hard, hearts racing. Did you get them? He asked finally. The emails? I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos. He scrolled through them, his face growing darker with each swipe. This is it, he said. This is proof. Intent. Conspiracy. Murder for hire. Mrs. Hartwell, we can go to the police now. This is enough. No. He looked at me sharply. What do you mean, no? I mean we need more. We need his voice. We need him to admit it on tape. I thought about the emails, about how a good defense attorney might argue they were fabricated, taken out of context, misunderstood. We need something irrefutable, something he can't explain away. Leonard was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Then we go back. We wire his office. We get him on tape confessing. The next afternoon, I walked into One Brickell Plaza through the front entrance. In broad daylight. In a business suit I'd asked Leonard to bring from my house when Bradley wasn't there. Hairstyled, makeup done. Looking every inch the CEO I was. The security guard at the front desk did a double take. Mrs. Hartwell, we've been so worried. Your son said, I needed some time alone to grieve, I said smoothly. But I can't hide forever. Work helps. Staying busy helps. He nodded sympathetically. Of course. I'm so sorry for your loss. Evan was a wonderful young man. The words hit like a knife, but I smiled. Thank you. That means a lot. I took the main elevator to 28. A few employees saw me and offered condolences. Sympathetic smiles. Gentle words. I returned them all with grace, with warmth, playing the role of the grieving mother returning to work. No one suspected. Why would they? I was Mariana Hartwell. I'd built this company from nothing. This was my building, my empire. I belonged here. Bradley's office was empty. His assistant, Jessica, told me he was at a client meeting across town. Wouldn't be back until evening. Perfect. I need to leave something in his office, I told Jessica. A surprise. Don't mention I was here, okay? She smiled, pleased to be part of something kind. Of course, Mrs. Hartwell. I stepped into Bradley's office and closed the door softly. From my purse, I pulled out the tiny wireless microphone Leonard had ordered online. Voice activated. 50-foot range. Undetectable unless you knew exactly where to look. I crouched beneath Bradley's desk and pressed the microphone into the shadowed corner where the wood met the metal frame. Completely invisible. Then I stood, smoothed my skirt, and walked out. "Thank you, Jessica," I said. "And remember, it's a surprise." "My lips are sealed," she promised. By 5:30 that evening, I was back at Leonard's apartment. He handed me his phone with the listening app already open. "It's live," he said quietly. "Everything he says in that office, we'll hear." We waited. Leonard made coffee, ordered dinner from a nearby Cuban restaurant. Neither of us could eat. We just sat on the couch, staring at the phone on the coffee table, waiting for it to crackle to life. At 5:47 p.m., Bradley's voice came through the speaker. "Gordon, it's me." I froze. Leonard reached over and increased the volume. "What's wrong?" Gordon Miller's voice, clipped and cautious. "My mother is asking questions. She went to the university the day of the funeral. She talked to that professor." "Stay calm. We handled that. The professor's suicide closed that door. There's no evidence." "What about the journal? The professor called my mother. What if she told her about it?" "The journal is gone. I made sure of it." A pause. "Bradley, you need to keep it together. You're being announced as president at the gala in 2 weeks. After that, we move the Vertex Holdings funds and disappear. Everything is going according to plan." "Unless my mother figures it out." "She won't. She's grieving. She's not thinking clearly. Just keep playing the concerned son. Be supportive. Be there for her. She'll never suspect." There was a long silence. Then Bradley's voice, lower, bitter. "I should have done this years ago. She always loved him more. Evan the genius. Evan the architect. Evan could change the world. What about me? I built this company with her. I made it what it is. But it was always Evan, Evan, Evan." "And now it's just you," Gordon said. "The company is yours. The money is yours. Everything you deserve." He was pathetic, you know. So trusting. Took those vitamins every single day, even when he started getting sick. Even when I could see the suspicion in his eyes. Too loyal to actually accuse me. Too weak to save himself. My vision blurred. Leonard grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard, anchoring me. "We need to move faster on the money," Bradley continued. "What if she freezes the accounts? What if she finds out about Vertex?" "She won't. The shell company is bulletproof. 2 weeks, Bradley. Just hold it together for 2 more weeks. After the gala, after the announcement, we liquidate everything and vanish. Cayman Islands for me, wherever you want to go. We'll be rich and free." "And my mother?" A pause. Then Gordon's voice, cold and calculating. "Grief is a powerful thing. People do irrational things when they're grieving. Falls, accidents, overdoses. It happens all the time. I'm suggesting that if your mother becomes a problem, there are solutions. The same solutions we used for Evan. For the professor. We've done it twice. We can do it again." The call ended. The office fell silent. I sat there, staring at the phone. Leonard stopped the recording and looked at me, his face pale. "They're planning to kill you," he said quietly. "At the gala, or after. They're going to murder you just like they murdered Evan." "I know." "We have everything now. The journal, the emails, this recording. Full confession. We can go to the police. They'll arrest them tonight." I stood up and walked to the window. Downtown Miami sparkled below, thousands of lights against the dark sky. My city, my company, my life's work. And my son, my eldest son, was planning to take it all, including my life. "No," I said. "Not yet. Mrs. Hartwell, the gala is in 2 weeks. Bradley will be announced as president. There will be 400 people there, investors, board members, press, the most powerful people in South Florida." I turned to face Leonard. "I want him to fall in front of all of them. I want the world to see who Bradley Hartwell really is, not in some interrogation room, not in some plea deal behind closed doors. Public destruction, complete and total. Leonard studied me for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. The gala. We expose him at the gala. We'll need to prepare a presentation. Video, audio, evidence. Can you coordinate with the AV team? I'll tell them you want to give a tribute to Evan. They won't question it. He pulled out his phone, already making notes. What about the police? Detective Samuel Rivera. He was at Evan's funeral. Seemed genuine, compassionate. I remembered him, late 50s, silver hair, kind eyes. Contact him quietly. Tell him we have evidence of a murder. Tell him to be at the gala. Tell him to bring backup, but to wait outside until I give the signal. He might want to move sooner. Then convince him not to. Leonard, if we arrest Bradley now, Gordon will disappear. The money will vanish. A good lawyer will argue the emails are circumstantial. But if we let them hang themselves in front of 400 witnesses, if we get them to incriminate themselves publicly, there's no defense, no escape. Leonard met my eyes. It's risky. Everything about this is risky. But I owe it to Evan. I owe it to Professor Ross. I owe it to every person who trusted me to build something good, something honest. My voice hardened. And I owe it to myself. Bradley took my son. He planned to take my life. The least I can do is take everything from him. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I stayed hidden at Leonard's apartment, watching the world move on without me. Bradley continued searching. His voicemails grew more desperate. Mom, please, I'm scared. What if something happened to you? What if you had an accident? The police are worried. They're talking about filing a missing persons report. Mom, I love you. Please come home. Please let me help you. Each message was a knife, because I knew the truth beneath the words. I knew what he was planning, what he'd already done. The concerned son was a performance, an act he'd perfected over 28 years. Leonard and I worked 18-hour days. He compiled the evidence into a presentation. Evan's journal pages, enlarged so everyone could read them. The photo of the unlabeled pill bottle. The emails. White text on black background. Impossible to miss. The audio recording crystal clear. Bradley's voice admitting everything. We rehearsed. Timed it. Made sure every piece of evidence would hit with maximum impact. Made sure there was no chance for Bradley or Gordon to interrupt, to spin, to deflect. Detective Rivera agreed to attend. Leonard had met with him privately, shown him just enough evidence to prove this was real. Rivera was skeptical. This kind of public exposure was highly irregular, but Leonard convinced him. If you arrest them now, a good lawyer might get them off, Leonard had argued. But if they confess in front of 400 witnesses, including a dozen reporters, there's no defense. It's airtight. Rivera had agreed, reluctantly. But if this goes wrong, it's on you. 3 days before the gala, I finally responded to Bradley's messages. A single text. I'm okay. Needed time alone. I'll see you at the gala. His response came immediately. Mom, thank God. I've been so worried. Where are you? Can I see you? The gala. We'll talk then. Mom, please. I turned off my phone. I couldn't read anymore. Couldn't listen to him pretend to care. Not when I knew the truth. The night before the gala, I couldn't sleep. I lay on Leonard's couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Evan, about the journal, about his last entry. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I wasn't stronger. But he had been strong. Stronger than anyone should have to be. He'd faced death knowing exactly what was happening, and he'd stayed silent to protect me, to spare me the pain of knowing. Well, I knew now, and I would make sure his death meant something. I would make sure Bradley paid for what he'd done. Not just in prison, but in reputation, in legacy, in every way that mattered. Tomorrow night, at the Four Seasons Miami, in front of Miami's elite, I would destroy my eldest son the same way he'd destroyed my youngest. And I wouldn't feel guilty about it. The ballroom at the Four Seasons Miami was exactly as I remembered from last year's gala. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across white marble floors. Round tables draped in ivory linen filled the massive space, each centerpiece a cascade of white orchids and roses. The ceiling soared 3 stories high, painted with a mural of clouds and sky, giving the illusion of dining outdoors. 400 guests mingled beneath it all. The men in tuxedos and custom suits, the women in evening gowns that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Miami's wealthiest and most powerful gathered to celebrate another year of success. I watched from backstage, hidden behind a black curtain. Leonard stood beside me, checking his tablet. "The AV is ready," he said quietly. "The presentation is loaded. Police are stationed at 3 exits. Rivera is in the back corner, plain clothes, with 6 uniforms waiting outside." I nodded, unable to speak. My hands shook. I wore a midnight blue gown, elegant and severe, hair pulled back, minimal jewelry. I looked like someone who'd come to mourn, not celebrate. Because that's exactly what I was doing. Mourning the son I'd lost, and mourning the son I'd never really known. On stage, the MC tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take your seats. We're ready to begin." The crowd settled. Conversation dropped to murmurs. I watched Bradley at the head table, sitting beside Gordon Miller. Both men wore custom tuxedos. Both looked confident, powerful, untouchable. Bradley kept glancing toward the entrance, looking for me, wondering if I'd really come. The MC began his speech. "Tonight we gather to celebrate 30 years of Hartwell development. 30 years of vision, innovation, and excellence in real estate development. And tonight we have a very special announcement." He paused for effect. The room leaned forward. "It is my honor to introduce the newest president and chief operating officer of Hartwell Development, a man who has worked tirelessly to build this company alongside his mother, a man who represents the future of this organization. Please welcome Bradley Hartwell." Applause filled the ballroom. Polite, enthusiastic. 400 people celebrating a young man's success. A legacy continued. The American dream alive and well. Bradley stood and walked to the stage. His smile was perfect. Humble but confident. Grateful but deserving. He'd practiced this moment, I realized. Prepared for it. This was supposed to be his coronation. It would be. Just not the way he expected. He reached the podium and gripped it with both hands. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. "To stand here tonight, to accept this honor, is something I've dreamed of since I was a boy following my mother through construction sites." Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. To continue my mother's extraordinary legacy is both a professional honor and a sacred family duty. His voice caught, perfectly timed. "My late brother Evan would have been proud. He believed architecture could transform lives, that buildings could make the world better, that our work mattered beyond profit margins." He paused, seeming to collect himself. "This company is built on family values, on integrity, on the dreams we pass down from generation to generation. My father Richard knew that. My mother Mariana knows that. And I promise to honor that legacy every single day." The applause swelled. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Bradley basked in it, drinking in the admiration. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for confusion to ripple through the crowd, for people to gasp and murmur. When the lights came back on, I was standing on the stage beside Bradley. The ballroom fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Faces turned toward me. Shock, confusion, whispers. "Mrs. Hartwell." "I thought she was in seclusion. Is she okay? She looks—" Bradley's face went white. Actually white. All the blood draining away, leaving him pale and shaking. "Mom," he whispered. "What are you doing here?" I walked to the microphone, calmly, steadily, looked out at 400 faces, 400 witnesses. "I'm here," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom, "to tell the truth about my son's death." The silence was absolute. I nodded to Leonard in the booth. The massive screen behind us flickered to life. Evan's journal appeared, each page enlarged, his handwriting clear, and damning. Week 1. Bradley gave me these premium vitamins. Week 5. Something's wrong. I checked the vitamin bottle. No brand, no label. Week 7. I'm scared. Really scared. Final entry. My liver is failing. But I know why. I've known for weeks. The audience sat frozen, reading. 400 people absorbing my son's dying words. Then the emails appeared, one after another. The problem needs to be handled quickly. I can source it. Untraceable, slow acting, 15,000. Once he's gone, the company is mine. We split the $2.3 million offshore. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Shocked whispers. People pulling out their phones, recording. Then the audio played. Bradley's voice, clear and unmistakable. I should have done this years ago. She always loved him more. He was pathetic, so trusting. Took those vitamins every day. Gordon's voice. If your mother becomes a problem, there are solutions. The ballroom exploded. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Board members stood, staring at Bradley and Gordon in horror. Bradley spun toward Gordon Miller, seated at the head table. You told me this was foolproof. You said there was no evidence. Gordon stood abruptly, face flushed. Don't you dare pin this on me. You poisoned your own brother. This was your plan. You provided the substance. You wanted the money. You had $850,000 in gambling debts. Gordon's voice rose to a shout. I only helped because you promised me a cut. You're the one who killed him. You're the murderer. They were screaming at each other in front of 400 witnesses. Cameras recording every word, every accusation, every damning detail. I stood at the microphone, watching it unfold, watching my son destroy himself. Finally, I spoke. My voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Both of you killed my son. For money, for greed, for nothing that matters at all. Bradley turned to me, panic replacing calculation. Mom, please, I can explain. This isn't what you think. The emails are out of context. The recording was edited. Please, you have to believe me. Explain to the police. As if on cue, Detective Rivera stepped forward. 6 uniformed officers emerged from the wings and the back of the ballroom, surrounding the stage. Bradley Hartwell, Gordon Miller, Rivera said, his voice calm and authoritative. You're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Bradley's eyes went wild. He looked at the exits, at the crowd, at the officers, calculating his chances, finding none. He tried to run anyway. He bolted toward the back of the stage, but the crowd closed in. 400 people standing now, phones raised like a wall of judgment, blocking every escape, cameras flashing, recording, broadcasting his guilt to the world. He stumbled, covering his face, but there was nowhere to hide. Leonard had sent the evidence to every major news outlet before we'd even arrived. By now it was streaming live, going viral. Miami developer's son accused of murdering brother. Confession at gala. The hashtags were probably already trending. Officers grabbed Bradley's arms, pulled them behind his back. Handcuffs clicked into place. Mom, Bradley said, and his voice broke. Mom, please, I'm your son. I'm all you have left. Please don't do this, please. I looked at him, really looked at him, trying to find the boy I'd raised, the child I'd loved, the son I'd thought I knew. But all I saw was a stranger, a murderer who'd worn my son's face for 28 years. You stopped being my son, I said quietly, the day you killed your brother. I turned and walked off the stage, through the crowd that parted silently before me, past reporters shouting questions, past board members staring in shock, past everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, everything that no longer mattered. Leonard met me at the exit. The car is ready. We walked out of the Four Seasons into the warm Miami night. Behind us, I heard sirens, shouting, the chaos we'd created. But I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no revenge, just emptiness where my sons used to be. They didn't arrest Bradley and Gordon that night at the gala. Not officially. Not in the way that would hold up in court. Detective Rivera explained it to me 3 days later, sitting across from me in a small conference room at Miami Police Department headquarters. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his weathered face. "The evidence you gathered, the emails, the recording, it's problematic," he said carefully. "Not because it isn't real, but because of how you obtained it." I stared at him. "I broke into my own building, used my own master key, accessed my own company's computers. Your son's computer, without his knowledge or consent, and the recording device in his office?" Rivera shook his head. "Florida is a two-party consent state for recordings. You needed his permission to record him." "He murdered my son." "I know, and I believe you, but a defense attorney will argue that the evidence was obtained illegally, that it's inadmissible. They'll move to suppress it, and they might win." He leaned forward, his expression sympathetic but firm. "Mrs. Hartwell, I've been a detective for 30 years. I've seen guilty people walk free because of technicalities. We need to do this right. We need a confession that will stand up in court." They confessed at the gala, in front of 400 witnesses. They accused each other. They panicked, but neither one directly admitted to killing Evan in a way that's legally binding. We need more. Leonard, sitting beside me, spoke up. "What are you suggesting?" Rivera pulled out a folder. "Bradley and Gordon both made bail this morning, $2 million each. They're not allowed to leave Miami-Dade County, but they're free for now." "You let them go?" I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. "We had to. The evidence wasn't strong enough to hold them without bail." Rivera opened the folder, showed us surveillance photos. Bradley getting into his car. Gordon at his apartment building. But here's what's interesting. They're both panicking, making calls, meeting with lawyers, and they're blaming each other. He slid another photo across the table. Bradley and Gordon, sitting in a car in an empty parking lot. Both men looked furious, arguing. "They hate each other now," Rivera continued. "Each one thinks the other betrayed them, exposed them. If we can get them in the same room, turn them against each other completely, they'll confess, really confess, everything." "How?" I asked. Rivera smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "We set a trap. We make them think they can still escape, that if they just silence each other, destroy the evidence, they can walk away free. And when they meet, when they think no one's listening, they'll tell us everything we need to hear." Leonard and I exchanged glances. "You want us to help?" "I want you to give them a reason to meet, to panic, to turn on each other." Rivera pulled out 2 burner phones. "These are untraceable. You send them each a text. Make them think the other one is trying to cut a deal, trying to escape with the money. They'll arrange to meet, and we'll be there waiting." I took one of the phones, stared at it. "And if this doesn't work? Then we go to trial with what we have, and pray a jury believes us despite the technical issues." Rivera's expression hardened. "But I've seen too many guilty people walk free, Mrs. Hartwell. I don't want Bradley and Gordon to be 2 more. Neither did I." That night, Leonard and I sat in his apartment, both burner phones on the coffee table between us. Outside, Miami's lights sparkled against the dark sky. Inside, we were about to commit to a plan that could either bring justice or destroy everything. "Are you sure about this?" Leonard asked quietly. I thought about Evan's journal, about Professor Ross falling from that window, about Bradley's voice on the recording. He was pathetic, so trusting. "I'm sure." Leonard picked up one phone. I picked up the other. We'd already programmed in the numbers. Bradley's cell phone in one, Gordon's in the other. "Make it convincing," Leonard said. "They have to believe the other one sent it." I typed carefully. From Gordon's number to Bradley. "It's over. Cops are building a case. I'm taking my half of Vertex money and disappearing tonight. Meet me at Port of Miami, Warehouse 7D, 2 a.m. Bring the offshore account docs. We split the cash and run before they freeze everything. Come alone, or we both go to prison." Leonard typed his message. From Bradley's number to Gordon. "The lawyer says we can beat this if we destroy the evidence and get our story straight. Meet me at Port of Miami, Warehouse 7D, 2 a.m. I have a plan to pin everything on Mom. Make it look like she fabricated evidence out of grief. Come alone. Trust no one else. We hit send simultaneously, then sat back and waited. 10 seconds later, both phones buzzed. From Bradley. How do I know I can trust you? From Gordon. What's the plan? This better work. Leonard and I typed responses, each pretending to be the other person. Back and forth, building the trap, making them believe. Finally, from Bradley. Fine, 2 a.m., Warehouse 7D, I'll be there. From Gordon. If you're lying to me, I'll kill you myself. Leonard immediately called Detective Rivera. They took the bait, both of them. Warehouse 7D at Port of Miami, 2 a.m. We'll be there, Rivera said, but stay back. If they see you, this whole thing falls apart. We'll stay back, Leonard promised. But when he hung up, he looked at me. We're going, aren't we? We're going. The Port of Miami at 1:30 a.m. was a maze of shadows and industrial equipment. Shipping containers stacked like metal building blocks. Massive cranes silhouetted against the night sky. The smell of salt water and diesel fuel thick in the air. Warehouse 7D sat at the end of an access road, isolated from the main port facilities. It was abandoned, Leonard had discovered, once used for storing cruise ship supplies, now empty and forgotten. Perfect for what we needed. Leonard parked 2 blocks away, engine off, lights off. We'd worn dark clothes, brought binoculars, looked like criminals or spies or people who'd lost their minds. Maybe all 3. Rivera's team is positioned around the perimeter, Leonard whispered, checking his phone. Unmarked cars, officers in plain clothes. They'll move in once Bradley and Gordon start talking. How will we hear what they're saying? Leonard pulled out a small device, another piece of technology I didn't want to know how he'd acquired. Audio receiver. Rivera planted microphones inside the warehouse this afternoon. We can listen from here. He handed me an earpiece. I fitted it into my ear, heard only static. At 1:55 a.m., headlights appeared down the access road. A black Mercedes, Gordon's car. He parked outside the warehouse, got out slowly, looked around nervously. He wore an expensive coat despite the warm night. Hands in pockets, shoulders hunched. He looked terrified. At 2:03 a.m., another car arrived. Bradley's BMW. He parked next to Gordon's Mercedes, stepped out. He looked worse than Gordon. Haggard, unshaven, still wearing the tuxedo pants from the gala with a wrinkled dress shirt. They saw each other. Froze. Through my earpiece, I heard Bradley's voice, sharp with suspicion. Why did you text me? I didn't text you, Gordon said slowly. You texted me. Realization hit them both simultaneously. Bradley ran to the warehouse door, pulled on it. Locked. Gordon joined him, yanking on the handle. What the hell is this? A trap, Bradley said. His voice rose. Someone set us up. We need to get out of here. They both ran back toward their cars. But Leonard had been thorough. He'd jammed their locks electronically earlier. Neither car would start. No, 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 Gordon shouted, pulling frantically on his car door. Bradley spun around, looking for another exit, but the warehouse was surrounded by chain-link fence. The only exit was the road they'd come in on, and headlights were already appearing in the distance. Police? No, not yet. Rivera wanted them to talk first. Bradley and Gordon realized they were trapped. They backed toward the warehouse, the only shelter available. Bradley kicked the door. Once, twice. The lock splintered. The door swung open. They stumbled inside. Through my earpiece, I heard their breathing. Heavy. Panicked. The warehouse was massive, filled with old pallets and abandoned equipment. Shadows everywhere. This is your fault, Gordon hissed. You told me this would work. You said it was foolproof. How was I supposed to know she'd find the journal? Bradley shot back. You said you destroyed his belongings. I did. I burned everything in his office except what the police needed to see. How did she get that journal? The professor must have had it. The one who... Bradley stopped abruptly. The one who what? Gordon's voice was sharp. Say it, Bradley. The one you killed. The one you pushed out that window. We killed her. We? You were there too. I held the door, Gordon said. You pushed. Don't try to rewrite history now. I gripped Leonard's arm so hard my nails dug into his skin. They'd killed Professor Ross, both of them, and now they were confessing to it. We need to get out of here, Bradley said. We need to run, right now. Forget the money. Forget everything. We just need to disappear. With what? The accounts are frozen. Your mother saw to that. The board voted this morning. You're fired. I'm fired. We have nothing. Then Bradley stopped. We make a deal. We testify against each other. First one to talk gets immunity. You bastard, Gordon whispered. That's your plan? Throw me under the bus? You're the one who got the poison. You're the one who made the contacts. You just murdered your brother. Gordon's voice echoed through the warehouse. You fed him poison for 3 months. You watched him die. Don't pretend you're innocent. And you helped. You did it for money. So did you. $850,000 in gambling debts. Don't act like this was about the company. This was about you losing everything because you couldn't stop betting on football games. Silence. Heavy breathing. Then Bradley's voice, quieter, more dangerous. How did you get him to take the pills every day? The question threw me. Why was he asking that? They both knew the answer. Unless Rivera was right. Unless they needed to hear it from each other, needed the confession to be complete and undeniable. Gordon answered slowly, carefully. You gave them to him. You said they were vitamins. I know what I did. I'm asking what you did. How did you make sure the dose was right? How did you know it would look like organ failure? My contact in Hialeah, the chemist. He calculated the dosage based on Evan's weight. 0.5 milligrams of TX447B daily mixed into standard vitamin capsules. Slow-acting toxin. Accumulates in the liver and kidneys. Causes gradual organ failure that looks natural. And the professor? How did we make that look like suicide? We. He said we, both of them admitting to both murders. I called her, Gordon said. Told her I was you. Said you needed to meet her at the university to discuss Evan's things. She came. We confronted her on the 5th floor. She had the journal. She refused to give it up. So I pushed her, Bradley finished. I grabbed her and I pushed her out the window. And you watched. And I watched, Gordon agreed. And then we left. And everyone believed it was suicide because she was grieving. Another silence. Then Bradley laughed. It was a horrible sound, broken and bitter. We killed 2 people. He said. And for what? We're still going to prison. The money's gone. Everything's gone. Not if we kill your mother, Gordon said quietly. The words hit me like ice water. Leonard's hand found mine, squeezed hard. What? Bradley's voice was sharp. Think about it. She's the only witness who really matters. The journal is hearsay without her testimony. The emails can be explained as business communication taken out of context. The recording from the gala, we were under duress, panicking, saying things we didn't mean. But if she's dead? If she's dead, there's reasonable doubt. Grief-stricken mother fabricates evidence against her only surviving son. Can't handle the loss, takes her own life, or has an accident. Either way, without her testimony, the case falls apart. I waited for Bradley to reject the idea, to say no, to show some shred of humanity. Instead, he said, How would we do it? And my heart shattered completely. The same way we did the others, Gordon said. Make it look natural. She's been under tremendous stress. Lost her husband, lost Evan. Now her other son is accused of murder. People would believe she... Enough. A new voice. Detective Rivera speaking from somewhere in the warehouse. Lights flooded on, blindingly bright. Police officers emerged from behind equipment, from doorways, from everywhere. Bradley and Gordon spun around, hands raised instinctively. Bradley Hartwell, Gordon Miller, Rivera said, walking toward them with handcuffs. You're under arrest for the murders of Evan Hartwell and Catherine Ross, and conspiracy to commit murder. You can't. This is entrapment, Gordon started. You came here willingly, Rivera said calmly. You confessed to 2 murders. You planned a third, and we have it all on tape, audio and video." He pointed upward. Cameras, hidden in the rafters, recording everything. Bradley looked around wildly. His eyes found the cameras, found the officers, found the reality that there was no escape. Then his eyes found me. I'd stepped out from behind Leonard's car, walked into the warehouse, stood there in the harsh lights, watching my son realize he'd been caught. "You," Bradley whispered. "You set this up." "I did. I'm your son." "No," I said quietly. "My son died 3 months ago. You're the man who killed him." Officers moved in. Handcuffs clicked onto Bradley's wrists, onto Gordon's. Both men were reciting rights, but I barely heard them. All I heard was Evan's voice from the journal. "He's my brother. He wouldn't hurt me, but he did. And now he'd pay for it." The trial began 6 weeks later in the Richard E. Gerstein Justice Building, courtroom 61. The room smelled of old wood and tension. Harsh fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The gallery was packed. Reporters, Evan's friends, curious onlookers, and a few board members from Hartwell Development who needed to see this with their own eyes. Judge Howard Stevens presided. Late 60s, steel gray hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Known for fairness without softness. Even he seemed affected by the weight of what Bradley and Gordon had done. Both defendants sat at separate defense tables, flanked by their attorneys. Bradley in a gray suit, his face gaunt and aged 10 years and 6 weeks. Gordon in navy blue, staring at his hands, hollow and defeated. They weren't speaking to each other anymore. That much was clear. Prosecutor Monica Price rose, 45, razor sharp, with a reputation for winning impossible cases. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. We have the victim's journal documenting his symptoms and suspicions. We have emails showing payment discussions for acquiring poison and splitting embezzled funds. We have recordings of the defendants discussing the murders. And most damning, we have full confessions recorded at the Port of Miami warehouse, witnessed by Detective Rivera and his team." Bradley's attorney, Jeffrey Graham, stood. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, the kind of lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour. "Your Honor, this case is built on illegally obtained evidence. The emails were accessed without my client's knowledge or consent. The recordings were made without two-party consent, in violation of Florida law. And the warehouse incident was clear entrapment. My client was lured there under false pretenses and coerced into making statements." Judge Stevens looked at him over his reading glasses. "Mr. Graham, your client confessed to 2 murders and planned a third. The warehouse incident was a lawful police operation with proper warrants and oversight. The recordings were made in a location where your client had no reasonable expectation of privacy. The emails were found on company property where the CEO, Mrs. Hartwell, had every right to access company computers. Your motion to suppress is denied." "But, Your Honor—" "Denied, Counselor. Sit down." Graham sat, his face flushed. The trial proceeded. Witnesses testified one after another. Kyle Patterson, Evan's roommate, 23, architecture student, barely holding himself together. "Evan told me Bradley was being really nice suddenly, bringing him vitamins, checking on him constantly. He thought they were finally becoming close like real brothers. He was happy about it." Kyle's voice broke. "He never suspected, never imagined his own brother would." "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," Judge Stevens said gently. Patricia Reeves, Hartwell Development's senior accountant, 58, 20 years with the company. "I noticed irregular meetings between Mr. Miller and Bradley. Twice a week, sometimes more. I found it odd because Gordon didn't report to Bradley. They were at the same level. When I asked about it, Gordon became defensive. Told me to mind my own business. I should have pushed harder. I should have—" "You did nothing wrong, Ms. Reeves," Monica Price said. "Thank you. Dr. Ellen Vasquez, the physician who treated Evan at Miami General Hospital. 42, emergency medicine specialist. We couldn't understand what was causing his organ failure. All his tests came back negative for known diseases. We considered environmental toxins, but found nothing. In retrospect, knowing he was being poisoned with a slow-acting substance, everything makes sense. The progressive liver damage, the kidney failure. The symptoms that escalated despite treatment. She looked directly at Bradley. Someone gave that young man poison every single day for 3 months. Watched him suffer. Let him die. That takes a special kind of evil. Bradley's face remained impassive, but I saw his hands shake. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand in a black suit. Simple, professional. The same outfit I'd worn to Evan's funeral. I placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Sat down. Monica Price approached gently. Mrs. Hartwell, I know this is difficult. Take your time. I nodded, looked out at the courtroom, at the reporters with their notebooks, at Bradley refusing to meet my eyes, at Gordon staring at the table. Tell us about the day Professor Ross called you, Monica said. So I did. I told them everything. The phone call, the terror in Catherine's voice, finding Bradley in her office, the note she'd slipped into my pocket, finding Evan's journal hidden under his mattress, reading my son's final words. Can you read the final entry for the court? Monica asked. My hands shook as I opened the journal. I'd read these words 100 times in the past 6 weeks. They never got easier. My liver is failing. Kidneys failing. The doctors say I have days, maybe a week. They still don't know why. My voice cracked. I forced myself to continue. But I know. I've known for weeks. I found Bradley's laptop. I saw emails. They were talking about me, about the problem being handled, about money, about splitting $2.3 million once the obstacle is removed. I'm the obstacle. I'm the one being removed. Silence in the courtroom, complete and absolute. I screenshotted everything, sent the photos to Professor Ross, told her if anything happens to me, she needs to show them to Mom. I looked up at Bradley, finally met his eyes. I'm so tired, so scared, but I can't tell Mom. She's already lost Dad. If I tell her what Bradley is doing, it will destroy her. Maybe it's better if she thinks this is just an illness. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I wasn't stronger. Please don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault. This is all Bradley. Only Bradley. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't try to hide them. Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell, Monica said softly. No further questions. Jeffrey Graham stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Hartwell, isn't it true that you broke into your son's office to obtain the emails, that you planted recording devices without his knowledge, that you orchestrated the warehouse incident specifically to entrap him? I did what I had to do, I said, to prove that my son murdered his brother. But you violated his privacy. You broke the law. He murdered 2 people, I said. My voice was steel now. He poisoned Evan for 3 months. He pushed Professor Ross out a window. He planned to kill me next. I'm sorry if I didn't follow proper procedure while trying to stop a serial killer. The gallery murmured. Judge Stevens banged his gavel. Order! Graham tried again. Isn't it possible that you, in your grief, misinterpreted? I didn't misinterpret his confession, I interrupted. I didn't misinterpret him admitting to murder on tape, multiple times, to multiple people. There's no other interpretation. Graham had no response to that. He sat down. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. 72 years old, grandmother of 6, former schoolteacher. She looked at Bradley with the kind of disappointment that cut deeper than hatred. On all charges of first-degree murder in the death of Evan Hartwell, how do you find? Guilty. On all charges of first-degree murder in the death of Catherine Ross, how do you find? Guilty. On charges of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find? Guilty. On charges of fraud and embezzlement, how do you find? Guilty. The forewoman looked at Gordon. On all charges, we find the defendant guilty as charged. Gasps filled the courtroom. Someone behind me sobbed, one of Evan's friends probably. Reporters scribbled frantically. Cameras flashed despite the no photography rule. Bradley sat motionless. His face showed nothing, but his hands gripped the table so hard his knuckles were white. Judge Stevens addressed both defendants. Bradley Hartwell, Gordon Miller, stand. They stood, two men in expensive suits who'd thrown away everything for money. The callousness with which you ended two innocent lives is beyond comprehension, Judge Stevens said. His voice was measured, but anger simmered beneath. You, Mr. Hartwell, poisoned your own brother, fed him toxins every day while pretending to care, watched him die slowly, and never showed mercy. You, Mr. Miller, provided the means and covered the tracks. Together, you murdered Professor Catherine Ross to silence her. And you planned to murder Mrs. Hartwell to protect yourselves. He paused, let the weight of it settle. These were not crimes of passion, not mistakes, not accidents. These were calculated, premeditated murders committed for financial gain. You stole a brilliant young man's future. You destroyed a mother's family. You ended a dedicated teacher's life. And you felt no remorse until you were caught. Another pause. The law provides for only one appropriate sentence in cases like this. Bradley Hartwell, I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Gordon Miller, I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. You will both be remanded to the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections immediately. Officers moved forward. More handcuffs. Bradley finally looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. His were wet, pleading, looking for something. Forgiveness? Understanding? Love? I gave him nothing, just looked away. They let him out, led Gordon out, and just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones thrust toward my face, cameras everywhere, questions shouted from all directions. Mrs. Hartwell, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you forgive your son? What's next for Hartwell development? Will you visit Bradley in prison? Leonard appeared at my elbow, guiding me through the crowd. No comment. Mrs. Hartwell has no comment at this time. But I stopped, turned to face the cameras. I have something to say. The crowd hushed, waiting. Justice has been served today, but it doesn't bring back my son. It doesn't bring back Professor Catherine Ross. It doesn't undo the pain, the loss, the betrayal. I took a breath. Bradley Hartwell was my son. I loved him. But the person who committed these crimes is not the child I raised. He made choices, terrible choices. And now he'll live with the consequences. Will you visit him in prison? A reporter called out. No, I said simply. I have nothing left to say to him. I walked away, through the crowd, to Leonard's car. We drove in silence. 6 months later, I stood outside a small office building at 2099 Coral Way Suite 205. The sign above the door read, The Evan Hartwell Memorial Scholarship Fund. Through the window I could see a photo of Evan, 23 years old, smiling, holding one of his architectural models, full of promise and potential, full of life that had been stolen from him. Leonard stood beside me. The board approved the funding this morning. Full scholarships for 10 architecture students per year. Priority given to students with financial need who demonstrate exceptional talent. Evan would have loved this, I said quietly. He would have. Inside, our first scholarship recipient waited. Megan Taylor, 19 years old, attending Miami-Dade College while working 2 jobs to support herself. Her portfolio showed raw talent. Innovative designs, sustainable concepts, a vision for architecture that could change lives. Just like Evan's. We entered. Megan stood nervously, clutching her portfolio. Mrs. Hartwell, thank you so much for this opportunity. I still can't believe you earned it, I said. Your work is exceptional. Evan would have been honored to help support your education. Her eyes filled with tears. I won't waste this. I promise. I'll make you proud. I'll make Evan's memory proud. I know you will. We spent an hour discussing her plans, her dreams, the buildings she wanted to design, the communities she wanted to help. Listening to her, I could hear echoes of Evan, the same passion, the same belief that architecture could make the world better. When she left, clutching a check for her full tuition plus living expenses, Leonard and I sat in the quiet office. 10 students a year, he said. In 10 years, that's 100 architects carrying Evan's legacy forward. It's not enough, I said. It'll never be enough. But it's something. It's purpose. It's meaning from the darkness. Leonard handed me an envelope. This came today. From the prison. I knew without opening it. Bradley. Writing to me. Probably the 50th letter he'd sent. I'd read none of them. Throw it away, I said. Mrs. Hartwell? Throw it away, Leonard. I meant what I said. I have nothing to say to him. He made his choices. Now I'm making mine. He nodded. Put the letter in the shredder. That afternoon, I drove to Woodlawn Park Cemetery. 2 graves rested beneath an old oak tree. Richard Hartwell, beloved husband and father. Evan Hartwell, beloved son and brother. I'd had Bradley's name removed from Evan's headstone, changed it to just beloved son, because Bradley had forfeited the right to be called Evan's brother. I knelt between the 2 graves, placed white roses for Richard, sunflowers for Evan, his favorite. I did it, I whispered. Justice for you. Justice for both of you. Bradley and Gordon will spend the rest of their lives in prison. They'll never hurt anyone else. The breeze rustled through the oak leaves. Warm Florida sunshine filtered through the branches. I started the scholarship fund. Your scholarship fund. 10 students this year. 10 more next year. Your dream of architecture changing lives. It's continuing through them. A bird sang somewhere above. Life continuing despite death, despite loss, despite everything. I miss you both every single day, I said. My voice broke. Richard, I miss your laugh, your strength, the way you always knew what to say. Evan, I miss your smile, your passion, the way you saw beauty in everything. Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling too. I couldn't save you, Evan. I couldn't protect you the way a mother should. But I made sure you didn't die in vain. I made sure the truth came out. I made sure justice was served. I stood up, wiped my eyes. And I'll make sure your legacy lives on, through every student we help, through every building they design, through every life they touch. You wanted to change the world through architecture. Now you will, just not the way any of us planned. I kissed my fingertips, touched Richard's headstone, then Evan's. Rest well, my loves, both of you. I'll carry on from here. As I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness. It was too soon for that. But peace, purpose, the knowledge that something good was growing from the darkness. I'd lost 2 sons, one to death, one to evil. My family was shattered. My company was rebuilding under new leadership. I'd stepped down as CEO, unable to face the building where Bradley had plotted murder. But through Evan's scholarship fund, I was creating something new, something that honored his memory, something that would help others achieve the dreams he never could. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But maybe, just maybe, it was a start. 1 year later, I attended the Scholarship Fund's first annual gala. Smaller than Hartwell Development's corporate events, only 200 guests, but more meaningful. Architecture students and professors, community leaders, people who cared about education and opportunity and changing lives through design. Megan Taylor gave a speech. She'd completed her first year at the University of Miami's architecture program with a perfect 4.0 GPA. Her designs had won 3 competitions. She'd been featured in Architecture Digest as an emerging talent to watch. A year ago, I was working 2 jobs and barely making rent, she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. I thought my dream of becoming an architect was impossible, but the Evan Hartwell Memorial Scholarship gave me more than money. It gave me hope. It gave me proof that people believe in me, that my work matters. She looked directly at me, sitting in the front row. Mrs. Hartwell, you took your grief and turned it into something beautiful. You took your son's stolen future and used it to build futures for others. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for keeping Evan's spirit alive." The room erupted in applause. I stood, tears streaming, and applauded her back. This was what justice looked like. Not revenge, not destruction, but transformation. Taking the worst thing that ever happened and forcing something good to grow from it. After the gala, Leonard drove me home. Not to the Coral Gables estate. I'd sold that house. Too many ghosts. Too many memories. Instead, I lived in a smaller condo in Coconut Grove. Comfortable, manageable, a place to heal. "You've built something remarkable," Leonard said as we pulled up to my building. "Evan would be proud." "I hope so," I said. "I hope wherever he is, he knows his death wasn't meaningless. That good came from it." "He knows," Leonard smiled. "I'm sure of it." I went upstairs to my condo, made tea, sat on the balcony overlooking Biscayne Bay. The water sparkled under the moonlight. Boats drifted past, their lights twinkling. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Bradley Hartwell denied parole eligibility, sentenced to remain in prison for life. I read it twice, then deleted it. I didn't need updates about Bradley. Didn't want them. He was part of my past now. A painful chapter that was closed. My present was the scholarship fund. Was Megan and the 9 other students we'd helped this year. Was the 10 more we'd help next year and the 10 after that. My future was continuing Evan's dream, making sure his vision for architecture that changed lives, that built communities, that made the world better, making sure that vision lived on. I'd lost my son, but I'd found my purpose, and maybe in the end, that was the only justice that really mattered.